All right, guys, it's true crime time again. I'm Ryan Nix.
And I'm Taylor Lynch.
And we're your hosts for Pure Malice, a true crime podcast. The information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretations of this content. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guest and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. All right, guys. So it's true crime time again. We hope that you had a great week. Remember, it's not just crime. It's pure malice. So this case comes from Ireland. I was feeling inspired. I'd just gotten my DNA results, and so I went digging for crimes in Ireland and connected with my roots. I guess technically our roots. So this case is in Ireland. The case that we are going to get into today is the Vanishing Triangle, but we're going to go ahead and just get straight into it.
So we're going to start with the disappearance of Annie McCarrick on March 26, 1993.
Almost a year after Taylor was born.
Almost. She was the first of the girls to go missing at age 26. So Annie's parents were Nancy and John McCarrick. She is an American from Long Island, about 5'8", 140 pounds, a pretty girl. She was in Ireland because she just loved the culture there, and she was very into her heritage. So Annie was bright, fun, independent, and personable, and very sweet. She was called a ray of sunshine by her friends. She was living with two roommates, Jill and Ida, in a flat in Sandymount, Dublin, Ireland, studying to become a teacher at the St. Patrick's Training College in Drumcondra, Dublin, and later took classes at St. Patrick's College in Maynooth. She had one serious relationship with a man named Philip Brady in Ireland, and it ended in one. So when she transferred to college in Maynooth, she began a relationship with Dermot Ryan. Not a fan of the name.
Me either. Blah.
It makes me think of dermatology.
Makes me think of a hermit crab.
Oh, yeah, that's better. Anyways. All right. So she did have a active social and love life. In the early 90s, she came back to the States and got her master's, but she loved Ireland and she loved it there so much that she wanted to get her certification to teach in Ireland. So in January of 1993, she went back to Ireland and decided that's where she wanted to set roots and live. So by March of 1993, she was missing.
Not long.
So we're talking like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So she worked at a hotel restaurant and was working at a cafe when she went missing. So on March 26, 1993, she left her apartment and planned to spend the day in the Wicklow Mountains and take a walk in the foothills, which was a popular place to walk. Her friend was supposed to meet her and walk with her, but she couldn't make it. Annie left the flat, had a few errands to run. Now, this was in 1993, so there was not a bunch of surveillance of her like there would have been today. There was only one CCTV footage of her at the Allied Irish Bank. Okay, so there was only one CCTV footage of her at the Allied Irish Bank in Sandymount. She was doing some business there, trying to transfer her accounts closer to her new flat. She was caught on the CCTV at the bank, and then she was seen at the Quinsworth supermarket around 11 a.m. She had planned to host some friends that weekend at the flat, and she was getting ready for a dinner party with Hillary, her ex-boyfriend's brother, and his fiancée, Rita. So her mother had also planned to visit in a few days. When she decided to move back to Ireland, her parents were like, "We'll miss you," so they planned a trip immediately. Some looks like our parents would try.
Which we would love.
She made a couple of phone calls after this at a phone kiosk, kind of like a phone booth. She called Hillary and Rita to confirm a time for the dinner party, and then she made another call to another friend. She gets back to her apartment with her groceries. According to Reddit and a book, she left her bag of groceries on the counter, which is strange because it had a lot of things that needed to actually be refrigerated. So we're talking butter, cream, meat, that sort of thing. Things that you wouldn't just let sit on the counter for a long period of time. So the groceries were found on the counter after she went missing. So this is important because it seems as if she planned to come back home quickly to put them away and then just was not able to. So maybe she went for a quick walk because she hadn't gotten to take her walk yet and thought she'd put them back when she got back. So around 3 p.m., a plumber named Bernard Sheen saw her leave the apartment and spoke with her briefly. She went to the bus station and was seen on the 44 bus from Ranelagh to Anna's Kerry. At 3:40 p.m., she was seen on the bus by a coworker who knew her and had a relationship with her. So they said that they saw her, but they didn't get to talk to her, but they knew that they saw her. This would be the last time anyone who knew her saw her. There was another possible sighting of her at a small coffee shop called Poppy's. This person said that they saw her with a man who brought her a food item and then they left together. They seemed to know each other, but she was not known to be dating anyone at this time. So then there was another possible sighting, which is debated between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m., which was also in the same area. It wasn't confirmed to be her, but it sounds like it's generally believed that this is her. No one she knows claimed to see her here, but people who saw the newspaper reported that they thought it was her. It's easy to believe that because she was small and American. So this sighting is at Johnny Fox Pub in Glen Cullen. So big tourist place, and she had been there before. So the bouncer thought he saw her and said that he saw an American woman matching her description and didn't realize that there was a cover charge to come to this cover show, like £2 or something to get in. So she was like, oh no. But the bouncer said that a man behind her in his late 20s offered to pay for her to get in. It didn't seem like she knew the man behind her who paid for her to get in, though. Other people in the pub said that they saw her throughout the night at the pub and that the man was buying her drinks all night long, paying attention to her all night. No one reported seeing them leave together, and no one can say when he left or when she left, or if they left together or separately. So initially, this man went unidentified. Annie's father hired a PI after she went missing, so a private investigator. And this guy believes that she never went to the pub, and that the reason for this is because that night it was raining and freezing, and she would have had to walk in the freezing rain in pitch black for over 3 miles on the mountain roads alone to get there. But she could have technically gotten a cab, who knows? So maybe she did get a ride, and if she was there with a guy, maybe she had just met him and he drove her there.
Maybe, we don't know.
So yeah, we just don't know. So the next day was Saturday when she doesn't show up to pick up her paycheck at work or for her shift. When her friends Hillary and Rita showed up for dinner that night, she wasn't there. They waited for a bit and then they left. They called her and got no answer. They then called her mother and said, this is odd. Her mother also felt like this was odd. So her flatmates then show back up at the flat the next morning, and Annie wasn't there, and the groceries are still sitting on the counter. So remember, these groceries had things like cream, butter, milk.
Things that needed to be put away.
Meat. Yeah, things that just you're not going to sit on the counter. Because even back then, they would have been considered more expensive.
Yeah.
So it was clear to them that she had planned to come back and put her bags of groceries up. So at this point, now everyone is concerned. So her parents were contacted by friends and they arrived immediately on the next available flight. She was reported missing 80 hours after her last confirmed sighting. Now people are wondering if the guy she was possibly seen with twice was actually responsible for her missing and if it's the same man in both sightings.
Yeah, that's a great question.
So there was a massive search for her, and police publicly asked people with information to come forward. She was last seen wearing a dark-colored tweed jacket, Oxford-colored cowboy boots, and a tan shoulder bag. The missing persons investigation quickly turned into a murder investigation. They don't have evidence of this that they had released, but she vanished without a trace. So Investigators are looking for a body at this point. No trace of her has ever been recovered, and her parents stayed in Ireland for 2 months searching for her, and no one found anything.
Wow, like not a single thing? Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Hmm.
There are two theories outside of a serial killer operating. So, ready for it?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
All right, so theory one. So, theory one is the former flame theory.
Ah, the former flame theory.
She apparently told a few friends that she had let things get a little too far with the former fling. Not Philip, not Dermot, but a different one. She said things went a little too far and she was not interested in getting back into it. And she was not sure why she let it happen. She said she shouldn't have done that and that it was a bad idea. So when this guy was asked about it by police, because friends came forward with that information, he denied that it happened and then tried to make up an alibi for the same time she claimed they were together.
Yeah, not a good look.
So right away, they started pressing him on it. Eventually, he admitted that Annie was telling the truth. They had been together and that his alibi was a lie, and that the reason he did that was because he didn't want his girlfriend to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So that one didn't quite pan out, right? So this leads us into the second theory, which is an interesting one.
It really is.
Leads to an IRA member. IRA, what is that, you may ask?
If you've ever seen Sons of Anarchy, you'll know what it is. If not, here you go.
The Irish Republican Army. So eventually, the man who paid for her to get into the club that evening was identified as a former IRA member. He was a hitman.
Like a legit hitman.
Yes. And this hitman had been on the run for murder at the time. He had been banished from Northern Ireland. So other members had literally kicked him out and told him he needed to go away. So this man was banned from all of Ireland shortly after this and is believed to be in the US. He was accused of raping a 12-year-old daughter of another IRA member.
Pretty ballsy.
There is a book by Alan Bailey, who is one of the lead investigators on this case. The book is called Missing Presumed.
And in this book, he talks about the 6 cases that they focused on.
In his book, he says that perhaps the reason this guy would want to take her or kill her is that he found her attractive. He paid for her to get in, paid for drinks all night, and that maybe he started seeing how open she was, how much she loved all things Irish. And he was probably thinking, I'm going to impress her with all the stories about the IRA. He was drinking, maybe getting a little drunk, and then maybe he said too much and she got a little uncomfortable. So he could see that she wasn't into it. And then at this point, maybe he decided that he had to take care of it so that she would not say anything about the stories that he told her. So this is actually a pretty plausible theory.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's Annie McCarrick's disappearance. Again, no evidence has ever been found, and it's as if she vanished into thin air.
It's interesting just simply because literally there's not a single trace of anything found in her investigation. There was absolutely nothing. So it just kind of piqued my interest.
So now we're going to move into the second girl to go missing. The second girl to go missing was Josephine Jojo Dallard. She went missing on November 9th of 1995. She was 21 years old, 5'5", petite, blue eyes, brown hair. She was said to be funny and goofy, easy to be around. She had 3 sisters and a brother. Her father had died shortly before she was born, and her mother died when she was about 10 years old.
Sad.
Yeah. So her older sister basically raised her. So JoJo actually had worked as a waitress in a lot of different pubs and cafes. Initially, she was living and working in Dublin, but eventually moved closer to her hometown of Cullen. She had a flatmate, Mary McCullinan. On the day she went missing, she was in Dublin on an early bus to pick up their social welfare checks, and she got them. The bus she was going to be coming back on wasn't leaving until 6 p.m., so she had hours to wait. She called and spoke to some of her friends on the phone using the phone booth while she waited, and she decided to go to the Bruxelles pub and see if she knew anybody in there to pass some time. She ran into an old friend who was bartending there, and then another friend of hers showed up. And this was someone that she had had a fling with at one point. So they spent hours together that night, and apparently things went well because a room was booked at a nearby hotel in their name for that evening. But unfortunately, they did not use the room because that night a girl showed up at the pub while they were still there, and this girl was who the man met after dating JoJo, and they now lived together. So her and JoJo got into an argument, and he ended up leaving with the girl, which left JoJo at the pub. So now here she is stuck. The bus had already left, the one that she was originally waiting on, right? She thought that she was going to be staying, and now she's stranded.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in.
So she decides to go to another bus station and catch a bus heading in the direction of home, even though she knows the bus won't take her the entire way. When she got to the bus station, which was after 9 p.m., the bus going out was going as far as Nass. Her plan was to hitchhike to Callan from Nass, which in this area was not unheard of at the time. So from Dublin to Callan, it was over an hour. So the first driver who picked her up was only going to Kilcullen, which was still far away, but he said, I'll pick you up and take you, that far, but you have to be careful. Maybe you should just go ahead, get a hotel. I'm not a creep, but you never know about others, and I'm worried about you. So that's a little daunting, right?
Yeah, it is.
Predicting.
Foreshadowing.
Which is crazy. So he dropped her off, and then another young man picked her up and took her to Moon and dropped her off by a phone booth where she called her flatmate Mary. She told Mary, I still have a long way to go. So witnesses say that they saw her half in the phone booth and half out, still trying to hitchhike while she was on the phone. Mary said that while speaking to her, she was like, wait, hold on a second. She heard the phone booth open, and then about 30 seconds later, JoJo got back on the phone and said, I've got someone. I'm on my way. So this was the last time that she actually spoke to her. Witnesses later say that they saw someone matching her description running from a phone booth box to a dark porter-colored Toyota Carina, and that she got into the back passenger side, which means that there were at least 2 other people in the car. Possibly even 3 in that car, but for sure 2. So after this, she was possibly seen in Castledermont, wandering the roads, but it was not confirmed. So when she didn't show up at work the next day, Mary called JoJo's older sister, Kathleen, who immediately called the police. So the police didn't take it seriously at this point, and she really had to fight to get her case open. So it's not just in the States, you guys.
Yep, it's everywhere. Jinx. I almost just said that.
So her sister said that it really bothered her that she was telling the police that her sister disappeared while hitchhiking in the middle of the night. Her last communication was, hey, I'm getting in the car with a stranger. And then she was never seen again. So finally, the police did take it seriously and asked farmers to search their properties. They combed the sides of the roads and found nothing. And this was a pretty massive search. So the 2 drivers who did pick her up came forward and said, hey, we picked her up and want that on the record.
Which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So there were some crazy rumors going around at one point that one of the drivers who came forward, and we're talking about the second one who came forward, that he was actually named as a suspect. So he came from a very prominent political family in the area, and people thought that she was buried on their property. So it was probably just rumors. No driver ever came forward to say they picked her up in Castledermont. And police say that it's probably clear that the third car who picked her up in Moon Village is who is actually responsible. And it is thought to be more than one person. So the police went as far as doing a full-blown recreation of her last movements and filming it for TV. So they actually hired an actress and whole 9 yards.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yep. So they believe that she was abducted between the time of 11:50 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. She was wearing black jeans, a black jacket, white shirt, and black shoes. Listen, I love me some black, but I'm going to need us to start wearing some brighter colors, y'all.
I know, right? I'm guilty of the same thing. I love black. It's like my favorite thing to wear.
True, true, true. So, y'all, wear bright colors. So, in January of 1997, a taxi driver told authorities that the night she went missing around 1 a.m., he was driving home from his shift and he passed by a car pulled over in that area, and that he observed a man standing beside the front driver's side of the car peeing. And then suddenly, he saw the rear passenger door fly open and a woman jumped out and appeared to run away.
Oh, that gave me chill bumps.
He said that she appeared very frantic, very upset, and he then saw another man run out of the back seat of the car to run after her, grabbed her around the waist, and him and the guy peeing roughly threw her in the back seat.
Scary.
So the taxi driver said they then got in the car and drove off as fast as they could in the direction of Waterford City. So he said that the car was likely a red Ford Sierra saloon car, which can apparently look like a Toyota Carina. His reasoning for not coming forward, well, he came up with quite a few reasons, but basically he said that when the news broke, he figured someone else had seen her and would go forward, and he didn't know if it was her.
Come on. You see all of this take place and you don't intervene in any way.
Mm.
You don't even make a phone call to police and say, hey, listen, I just saw this. It was suspicious. Check this out. You don't have to physically intervene. I can understand like the threats that come with that.
At least call and be like, hey, this looked odd.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he said a woman jumped out the back passenger seat, which is the one that she was known to have gotten into, seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 2019, they opened up another investigation into JoJo's disappearance to take a complete look at the entire case again.
Good.
So now we're going to move on to the third girl to go missing, 25-year-old Fiona Pender, on August 23rd, 1996. She was, at the time, 7 months pregnant.
Ugh. I hate that. That kills me.
She had a partner named John Thompson. She was a part-time model and hairdresser. She was known to be very bubbly, friendly, and lovable. She loved motorcycles and was a skilled rider, and was even part of a motorcycle club, which is where she met John. Unfortunately, her brother Mark died in a motorcycle accident in June of 1995, and she refused to ever ride one again after that.
Oh, that's sad.
Mm-hmm. So she was 5'5", and at that time, like I said, 7 months pregnant. And due to this pregnancy, she was having a hard time moving around. She went to a local Sacred Heart secondary school, completing a junior certificate. John and her lived in London for a while, and then they eventually settled into Tullamore. So she was last seen in bed by John in her flat on Church Street in Tullamore. So John was going to spend the night out of the 23rd at his family's farm to help out. She left the flat at some point on August 24th, and we know that she was never seen again. More than likely, she wasn't going to go far on her own. As we said earlier, she was having a hard time getting around due to pregnancy at this point. So the Thursday before she disappeared, she spent the day shopping with her mother for baby stuff. She was very happy, but also very tired. She went back to her parents' house for a bit that night, and then at 7 p.m., she took a taxi home with her mom. They had planned to spend time together again the next day, but this was the last time her mother saw her. The next day, her mom calls her, because they had already made plans, but she could not get a hold of her on the phone. So she actually went to the flat and the curtains were closed. So it was dark inside. Her mother thought, well, maybe she's resting or napping. Mom leaves. So later on, the father walked by the flat that night. It was still dark. Shades were still pulled. And they thought that this was just a little bit weird, but still thought maybe she was resting due to pregnancy-related symptoms. So the next afternoon is when they really got worried. They called her and got no answer. So they called John at his family home, and he said he thought she was with them because he had not been able to get a hold of her either. He came home immediately. They searched endlessly, and at 10 p.m. on Saturday night, they went and filed a missing persons report.
If I was somewhere and my person is somewhere else, I would at least talk to them one time before bedtime, right? Had I not heard from my person, I would call someone else to check on them.
At this time, it was very common not to talk every day,
That's true.
So it wasn't common practice for majority of people just to,
Yeah, you're probably right.
although I could see that, and people probably are like, why wouldn't you just call again?
Mhm.
The fact that mom and dad were even just walking by the flat to check in instead of making another phone call. Anyway, so, okay, now going back to that Saturday night, okay? So 10 p.m., they filed the missing persons report. The police came and searched, but they found no forced entry, no signs of anything happening in the flat. So it at least seemed like she left on her own.
Yeah, I mean, there was no disturbances. There's nothing to make them think that someone actually took her from the house.
Correct. So they broadcasted it everywhere. It went all over the place. Her picture was circulated, and one witness actually came forward and said early Friday morning he was walking on Church Street and he saw two men pulling up, putting a big bulky thing, which appeared to be wrapped in an old rug or carpet, into the trunk of their car. So he thought it was just rolled up carpet. Unfortunately, on March 31st of 2000, her father, Sean, actually took his own life, and his family said that it was due to the heartbreak of losing his own child and his unborn grandchild.
That is tragic.
So on May 10th of 2008, someone was walking in Montague in the Sleep Bloom and came across a handmade cross with the words Fiona Pender, buried here Thursday, October 22nd of 1996. So, of course, this walker notified the police, and it became a huge event. They had the area sealed off, had a supervised dig, and had a noted forensic anthropologist on board.
Can y'all hear the crickets? Toothless and Fancy Sue chirping away.
They're so loud. They used to not be this loud.
I've never heard them before on the recording.
I swear every Dutch we're getting lately is just getting louder and louder.
Sorry, distraction.
They dug extensively and nothing was buried there. Yep. So people think that it could have been just a horrible hoax, or according to Alan Bailey in the Missing Presumed book, the date on the cross coincided with a huge personal trauma that occurred in the life of a male that is a person of interest in the case.
Ooh, interesting.
So the fact that the date happens to coincide with a large moment of trauma in this man's life, who is the person of interest in the case, seems to be pretty significant. So they did not release what the trauma was that took place in his life, so we don't know any of that, but still, it is very interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
Very interesting. So nothing has come of it as of 2008. He also pointed out that the writing on the cross is very neat and that they hope that it will help bring results as well. On July 9th of 2013, Tullamore Town Council, where she lived, voted to name a walk near the canal by her home Fiona's Way. In 2014, the police opened the investigation again, and a woman in Saskatchewan, Canada, who was originally from Ireland, came forward and said her husband, who is a person of interest in the case, has been arranging violent sexual assaults on her and threatening to kill her. He said he told her that he killed Fiona and told her where they buried her, but that lead hasn't been out quite yet. So Fiona's mother said, I can't go to bed until I know I'm going to sleep because it's too hard. I can't lie on the bed because it's just like a TV program playing in front of my eyes, replaying everything. In 1998, they had set up a task force to concentrate on these 6 cases called Operation Trace to establish connections to gather evidence to connect all these things, which stands for tracing, reviewing, and collating evidence. It was set up by the Gardaí Commissioner, Mr. Pat Byrne. This task force has 6 members on it and is headed by Alan Bailey. They're focusing on men who have shown serious sexual violence
towards women.
Basically the worst of the worst, because a person who committed these crimes is seen as a sexual predator. They are profiling them, looking into their whereabouts at the time of the disappearances. They established this task force to focus on these 6 women, but also acknowledge that there were other cases, which we get into the next episode, that could be associated, but they are focusing on the 6 because they really feel like there's connection here. Larry Murphy is someone we will talk about in part 2, and he is a sexual predator who they have been looking very heavily at, possibly being the person responsible for a lot of these cases. So in the next episode, we will actually get into the other 3 missing women. We'll talk about Larry. We'll talk about a couple of other theories. And if you want more information on the case, I recommend the book by Alan Bailey, Missing Presumed.
He is extremely thorough and was working the case, so he has information in it that you won't find anywhere else. So that's always cool to me whenever we can find someone who's actually connected to a case, who gives real insight about things that you wouldn't know otherwise. All right.
Until next time.
Yeah, so until next time, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. This is Ryan.
And this is Taylor. And remember, it's not just crime,
It's Pure Malice. The information shared in this podcast or on this website is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The host will not be held responsible for any misled interpretations of this content. The opinions and views expressed are those of the host and guest and should not be considered advice. We cannot guarantee the accuracy of any statements from guests or the sufficiency of the information. Are you ready to lose weight and keep it off? At Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness, we offer powerful, medically supervised weight loss solutions using semaglutide and tirzepatide, the same game-changing medications making headlines across the country. Our expert team will guide you every step of the way so you can achieve real results safely and confidently. Feel better, look better, live better. Call Vital Flow Aesthetics and Wellness today at 254-310-7131 and start your transformation. Vital Flow, where wellness meets results.